Hello everyone, so today I want to cover my method of going through UWorld and how I take notes and how I use Anki as well. I've gotten dozens and dozens of comments on my YouTube channel and a lot of emails and LinkedIn messages from my podcast, specifically about how I go through UWorld and study for Step 1 as well as Step 2. And so today I'm going to share my screen and show you exactly what I do and how I have Anki set up on the left and right side and UWorld in the middle of my screen in order to take the most effective notes and how I can get through UWorld quickly and efficiently. I know I already made an episode on how to study for Step 1 and Step 2, and in that episode I talked about how I did anywhere between 120 to 200 questions per day on UWorld. And so today I want to show practically how I do that and what methods I used to be able to focus and be able to study effectively. And really quickly, if you're listening to this on the podcast and not watching the YouTube video, I think you can get a lot from also watching the YouTube video. There will be some parts that I cannot show because of copyright infringement, but I will try to show as much as I can, especially on the dashboard level. So this is what UWorld looks like for me, and as you can see, I've already gone through all of Step 2. My UWorld is about to expire in 2 days, so I wanted to go through exactly what I did on UWorld before I started. And so I only have about 75% overall correct, which is very reasonable to get into the 250s and 260s for Step 2. And you'll see there were 3,000 questions. I got about 1,000 of those wrong, and I omitted one question for some reason. I don't know which one that was, but I used up all of it. And so this is the Step 2 review. This is the shelf review, approximately the same. And so the first thing you want to do is go to Create Test, and you'll have this screen pop up, right? So before we go through all these different things that are on the screen, I just want to show you what my entire screen looks like. On the left panel, I have the area where I can add my own notes onto Anki, and I use this 85% or 90% of the time. I will get a question wrong and then immediately write my own notes here. On the right side, I have the browse function. And so the way you can do this is if you open up Anki, here's the main deck, Anking, Anking. I recommend you download this. If you don't know what that is, go onto Reddit and type in Anking. And you can ignore this because I haven't taken Step 2 in a couple of months. So it's been a while. Essentially, you press Browse and that'll open this panel on the right side. And then you press Add and that'll open this panel on the right side. And then you can minimize that panel. So this is what we have so far. We have Add, we have UWorld, and then we have Browse. And the whole function of Browse is to look for specific cards. So let's say I got a question on cardiomyopathy wrong. I would essentially scan through these 51,000 cards, cardiomyopathy, and then find the cards that I think are relevant. So apparently I thought these were relevant at some point. So for example, this specific question or this pre-made question, and then I would press Command J in order to suspend that or unsuspend it. And so I would essentially look through all of these different things. And as you can see, if there's a date on it, that means I've done it before. And this is an extremely important point that you guys recognize, is that combining UWorld with Anki will help you be super efficient, because there are people that already made these questions on Anki based off of UWorld questions. And so you don't have to do double the work unless, this is a key point, unless you don't actually see the Anki cards that are relevant to what you want to study and to the points that you want to learn. And so that's why I mentioned that I use the add function pretty much 90% of the time, because the Anki browse function may not have what you're looking for. And so now that I've gone through my setup, I don't have too many questions left over, but what I will do is show you exactly how I set it up. I have essentially two modes when I'm studying. I'm either studying for the exam or I'm doing content review. Right? And so let me go through how I do content review first. And the way that I do content review is that I do it in tutor mode, but not timed. I pretty much never use timed mode because I've never personally had any problems with timing on any of the STEP exams, but that is different for everyone. So play with that if you're not good with timing and you think you need some practice in getting faster. But the way that I do it is I have tutor mode on, I go into standard, I go to all of my unused questions, so I just select those. I'll select the subject. Let's say I am studying medicine. I'll select that. I obviously only have a few questions left over, but I'll select all of them, and I make sure that this is random. I do one subject at a time, but I make sure that the systems I'm studying under that subject are completely random. This is because you want to interweave different pieces of information when you're studying a particular topic. But because medicine, OB-GYN, pediatric, psych, surgery are so different from each other, you don't want to mix those in together. What I would do is do 40 questions with just medicine, 40 questions with just OB-GYN, and select all of the systems. And so I would do that. I obviously only have 15 total questions left over, so I can do 15 max, but normally it would be 40. And then I would generate the test. And so I'm going to generate the test here, but I'm going to stop screen recording because I don't think I'm allowed to show this on YouTube. And so if you're following along on the podcast, you don't have to worry about this. But if you're watching this on YouTube, just keep listening to follow along with what I'm going to be describing. Now you know what my screen looks like, you know what my method is, and so just follow along and I'll show you exactly how I do the questions. And so this is on tutor mode. So let's jump right into it. So I essentially just clicked generate test, right? And so the questions come up in front of me and I just want to go through some of the settings that I have that have helped me be efficient and effective in studying. So first thing I click on is reverse color. I like it when the color scheme is dark mode. This is a preference, of course, but you want to make sure that the appearance is set to NVMe and not UWorld. When you're practicing, you want it to be exactly how the test will look. So click on NVMe, not UWorld for appearance. Font size, I actually max out my font size. I make it as big as I can, and then I zoom in a little bit on my browser as well. This just helps my eyes a little bit. In my mind, if you're doing section after section, 40 questions at a time, and you're going through 200 questions a day, having really small text will actually strain your eyes a lot. And so dark mode, large font size, and then even you can command plus on your browser to make the font size even bigger because it kind of caps out after a few pluses. Next, going down the settings, I turn off my timer, but I turn on the split screen explanations. Those are super helpful so you don't have to scroll to the bottom of the question. It shows up on the side of the screen. Next, on the features, the main thing that I turn off is hide percent answered correctly. Please turn that off. You don't need to know what other people are doing. This is a test about you and how much you know. You don't need to know that when you got a question wrong, that 90% of other people got it right. It just doesn't help you in any way. So turn that off. I also have turned off add to flashcard and add to notebook just because I never used the UWorld flashcards or UWorld notebooks. And so if you don't use that as well, you can turn those off. So now I'm going to show you how I go through a question, right? And so you can't see this because I'm not screen sharing this, but essentially on my left side is going to be the add function, on my right side is going to be the browse function, and in the center is my dark mode UWorld, right? So I'm reading the question, I select an answer, I'm just going to select a random answer here. I happen to be wrong, and so now this is how my process works. So I got this question wrong. It's about antibiotic selection and neutropenia, right? And so I'm going to look at this question. First thing I do is look at the picture. Is this a simple enough picture for me to understand, or have I seen it before? If so, I'm not going to make a card out of the picture. But if I don't understand it, or if this is new content, I'm going to go to my add function and then write down the key points that I think are important for this and make a close deletion. That's CLOZE deletion for the information inside of this picture. Next, on UWorld, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the educational objectives. And so this is something you should do every single question, no matter what. So look at the picture, scroll all the way down to the educational objective, and then read that. That is the bare minimum information that you must know. And so I would make a close deletion out of that as well on my add function. And then on the right, if there's any other, different types of information, so if it's telling me that this bug is gram positive or gram negative, I would look up the bug on the browse function on my right side of the screen. And so I always have this open, and so I'll type in gram positives, and I have a couple of different cards that show up, and then I'll find the one that I think is useful, and then Command J, unsuspend that card. And this whole process, the question itself should take you about a minute. This whole process, once you get fast at it, of making the card or browsing for a pre-made card will only take you about an extra minute and a half. So that is essentially how I do my content review study mode. The only difference with when I'm not doing content review is that I go to the bottom left of my UWorld screen right here, and then I click edit test mode, or it's just 3 bars essentially. You click that and I turn off tutored mode. So when I'm practicing for the real exam, I don't want to get the answer after every single question. And so I turn off tutor mode and I go straight through the 40, and then I go back and review each one at a time. However, this is not as efficient as going through them one at a time, and it won't stick in your mind as well, so don't do this for content review. For content review, I highly recommend you have this workflow set up. You have the left side Anki add. In the center, you have UWorld on tutored mode, in dark mode with large text, and you have the browse function on the right side. And so that's essentially it. That is my method for going through UWorld efficiently, effectively, and making sure that I understand everything that I'm learning. You're paying a lot for UWorld, and of course you're paying a lot for medical school, so make sure that you're taking your time going through it and you're not rushing through the content. This is extremely important for you to understand in order to ace step 1 and step 2. And everything I mentioned here also applies to the MCAT. I just didn't use MCAT as an example because I don't have access to that. I hope that this video has been helpful and helps you optimize and set up your own UWorld account so that you can ace step 1 or 2.